set the scene.
Yeah.
The date is April 20th, 1989, and the time is just about 8:15 in the evening.
And the location is critical here.
Exactly. We're on Montana Highway 200. You're a small, very isolated town called Circle. And when I say dark, I don't mean the kind of dimness you get on a suburban street.
No.
This is a heavy, almost suffocating darkness that you only find in those huge open spaces of the American West.
It's a landscape defined by that isolation.
Right. The street lights, they would have ended miles and miles ago. The plains just stretch out into this black void. It feels like it goes on forever.
Highway 200 is often referred to by locals and even in official reports as one of the loneliest roads in the contiguous United States. The distance between any kind of settlement is vast, the terrain is rugged, and the silence is usually, well, it's absolute.
But not tonight.
Yeah.
Not on this specific night in 1989.
Yeah.
On this night, that silence has just been shattered. There's been a violent collision.
Yeah.
You've got the sound of metal crunching, glass scattered all over the asphalt, catching the headlights. Usually in a situation like this, the air is just filled with noise, right? You'd expect panic. Screaming, maybe. Yeah. People checking for injuries.
The sounds of human distress. But here, on this stretch of highway, at this exact moment, there's something else entirely.
The reports from the scene, particularly the initial witness statements filed with the Montana Highway Patrol, they describe an atmosphere that completely contradicts typical accident response. There's no panic. No immediate attempt to render aid.
No. Instead, there's just this profound, unsettling silence. And from one of the wrecked cars, a woman emerges. She doesn't check her own vehicle. She doesn't check herself for injuries, even though the impact was really significant.
She was in a serious crash.
She walks right over to the other driver who is, still trying to figure out what just happened. But the woman, she doesn't say a word.
No communication. Nothing. She doesn't ask, "Are you okay?" She doesn't apologize. She just stands there. And the way she looks at the other driver, witnesses said it was like she was staring right through her.
As if the person in front of her didn't exist.
Yes.
This is the moment that truly defines the entire case. It's an interaction devoid of any verbal communication, and it's characterized by a very specific type of dissociation. We are seeing the first signs of what clinically might be called a detachment from reality, or a flat affect in the face of extreme trauma.
And then, after just standing there, she turns away, she walks to a fence on the side of the highway, she climbs it.
But she doesn't run.
No, she doesn't run away immediately. She gets on the other side of that fence and she just stands there, motionless, watching the scene of the crash she just caused.
One witness, a woman named Peggy Bueller, used a very specific word.
She said she looked like a spectator.
Exactly.
Like she was watching a movie, like none of this had actually happened to her. And then, after watching for just a moment, she turns and walks into the empty field, into the darkness.
And she is never seen confirmed again.
We are looking at the disappearance of Patricia Bernadette Meehan. And this is not a standard missing person investigation.
It's a true anomaly in the files of Montana law enforcement. It involves a catastrophic event, a highly specific and bizarre set of behavioral markers, and then a search that spanned thousands of miles and, well, decades.
It's a story that has haunted investigators and her family for over 3 decades now. A woman who vanished not because she was taken or got lost, but a woman who seemingly just walked away from her own life.
Our objective here is to parse the verified timeline, to look at the investigation as it actually unfolded using the police files, the contemporary news coverage, and the official reports.
Right, just the facts.
We're dealing with potential trauma, psychological distress, and a search effort that generated over 5,000 alleged sightings. It is crucial we separate the verified details from the speculation.
So let's start at the beginning. Before the crash, before that highway, we need to understand who we're talking about. Who was Patricia Meehan?
To understand why she walked away, we have to understand what she was walking away from.
Exactly. She wasn't a drifter, not someone who lived on the margins of society, at least not originally. She was born November 1st, 1951, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
That's right. Her parents were Thomas and Dolores Meehan, though everyone knew Dolores as Dolly. The background information points to a stable, middle-class upbringing in Pittsburgh. Her educational path was very focused. She attended college in Oklahoma City.
And her focus wasn't agriculture or anything like that, which is where she ended up. It was early childhood development. She was studying to work with kids, preparing for a career in childcare. That's a very specific path. It suggests a certain personality, nurturing, patient. But then something changes. In 1985, there's this massive pivot in her life.
This is a significant data point in her psychological profile. At the age of roughly 33 or 34, she abandons that career path completely.
And she moves to Bozeman, Montana.
Which isn't just a change of address. It is a fundamental lifestyle shift. She goes from an academic, an urban environment, to working as a ranch hand.
A ranch hand. I mean, that is hard physical labor. It's dirty. It's exhausting. It's a world away from a classroom in Oklahoma.
A complete reorientation of identity.
She told people the reason was her love of animals, and she was committed to it. She worked odd jobs just to support this new life. She's described as 5'3", blonde. By all accounts, she was trying to make this new life work.
However, if we look at the timeline immediately preceding April 20th, 1989, the stability of that new life appears to be fracturing.
Yeah.
The investigative reports from the days leading up to the crash provide clear evidence of a deterioration in her mental state.
Right. We have statements from people who were actually around her. Her landlord, for instance. He was probably the last person to see her in a normal domestic setting. And he made a very specific observation. He said she was acting out of the ordinary.
The word he used was hyper.
Hyper. Now, when a landlord notices you're acting strange, it's usually pretty noticeable.
Well, hyper is a layperson's term, of course, but clinically, it can suggest a number of things. Mania, severe anxiety, high-stress arousal. It indicates she was not in a baseline state of calm.
And this is corroborated by a phone call, April 19th, just one day before she disappeared.
Yes. She called her father, Thomas, back in Pittsburgh.
Imagine getting that call.
Yeah.
She's thousands of miles away in Montana, and she tells him she's under extreme stress. She specifically says she wants to come home.
That request is critical. It indicates a desire for safety and a recognition that she could no longer cope with her current environment. It is a regression to a place of security.
It's a heartbreaking admission for an adult who moved across the country to start a new life. It's sort of admitting defeat.
And confirming this state of mind, her mother later noted to investigators that Patricia was experiencing depression.
But maybe the most tragic detail in this whole timeline is what was scheduled for the next day.
The morning of April 21st. Patricia had scheduled an appointment with a psychologist for that morning. She disappeared on the evening of the 20th. She was roughly 12 hours away from potentially receiving professional help.
So you have a woman who is stressed, probably depressed, acting hyper, who is literally asked to come home and has a doctor's appointment waiting for her. She knows she needs help.
She was taking steps.
And then, for reasons nobody can explain, she gets in her car. But she doesn't drive to the doctor. She drives to Circle, Montana.
Let's analyze the geography here because it really emphasizes the erratic nature of her movement. Circle, Montana is approximately 380 to 400 miles away from her home in Bozeman.
That's a 6-hour drive, minimum, on those roads.
A significant journey.
And it's not on the way to Pittsburgh. It's not on the way to anywhere specific that her family knew about. Neither the police nor her parents could figure out why she would be there.
It remains unexplained.
She just drove 400 miles into the middle of nowhere. I have to wonder what she was thinking during those 6 hours, or if she was thinking anything at all.
Which brings us back to the moment of the collision. It's 8:15 p.m. on April 20th.
Peggy Bueller and her father are in a car. They're traveling west on Highway 200. It's dark, but they see headlights coming toward them. And there's a problem.
The headlights are in their lane.
Patricia Meehan's vehicle was traveling east in the westbound lane.
Wrong-way driving is a highly specific traffic violation. It's often associated with intoxication, extreme fatigue, or, in some cases, intentional self-harm.
Though we have no toxicology reports to confirm the first.
Correct. We only have the behavioral evidence.
So Peggy Bueller reacts fast. She swerves onto the shoulder, manages to avoid a head-on collision, but there's a car behind her. It's driven by a woman named Carol Heights.
And Carol Heights was an off-duty police dispatcher.
So she knows procedure. She's not someone who's easily rattled, but she doesn't have the same reaction time as Peggy. Meehan's car smashes into her vehicle.
The mechanics of the crash were severe, but fortunately, Carol Heights emerged from the wreckage physically unharmed.
Which means she was alert. She was a clear-headed witness for what happened next.
Exactly.
So picture the scene. The dust is settling. Headlights are cutting through all the debris. The sound of the crash is fading into that silence we talked about. Carol Heights gets out of her car, and she sees the driver of the other car, the blonde woman, Patricia Meehan, get out.
Now, in a typical acute stress response, fight or flight, one would expect the driver to either check for danger or flee immediately.
Right. But Meehan didn't either. Not in a traditional sense. She walks right up to Carol Heights, close enough to touch.
And still doesn't speak.
Not a word. Carol Heights said the look on her face was haunting. She said she was looking right through her.
This description aligns with shock, or potentially a dissociative fugue state. The individual is physically present but psychologically detached from the immediate reality. The brain, overwhelmed by the trauma of the impact, may have simply shut down the emotional processing centers.
And then Peggy Bueller, who's still in the shoulder, is watching all this happen. She sees Meehan turn away from Carol Heights. She walks to the fence line, and she climbs over it.
And this is where that witness account becomes so crucial for the profile. She does not sprint. She doesn't scramble in a panic.
No. She climbs the fence and then stands still.
Standing there like a spectator.
That's the quote from Peggy Bueller.
Yeah.
Not like it had happened to her. I mean, can you imagine that? You've just crashed your car on the wrong side of the road, and now you're just standing in a field watching the wreckage like you're a bystander.
After observing the scene for a few moments, she turns.
She walks away into the empty field, away from the highway, away from the lights, and just into the night.
Peggy Bueller had to drive into town to find a phone to call for help. This is 1989.
Right, no cell phones. Her father stays at the scene with Carol Heights. By the time the police arrive, the field is empty. The woman is gone.
Identification wasn't immediate, but it was swift. About 30 minutes after police arrived, they ran the license plate of the abandoned vehicle.
And it was registered to Patricia Meehan.
Correct.
So now the police know who she is. They know she was just there. They have to assume she can't have gone far.
The immediate investigation focused on the physical evidence left at the scene. They found a trail.
Tennis shoe tracks.
Yes. They located a set of tennis shoe impressions beginning in a field about 3/4 of a mile from the crash site.
They measured the prints. They matched the size of feet for a woman of Patricia's stature. They were confident these were hers.
So they start tracking. It's late now. It's dark. It's getting colder.
And investigators followed these tracks for hours. They tracked her until 3 Banksio a.m. on April 21st.
But the terrain in that part of Montana is unforgiving. It varies between hard-packed earth, scrub brush, rocky areas. Eventually, the tracks just disappeared into the terrain. The ground became too hard to hold an impression.
They lost the trail in the dark.
Yes.
And they had to suspend the search until the sun came up. That 6 or 7 hour gap between 3:20 a.m. and daybreak, that is likely where the case was lost.
When the search resumed the next morning, the scope expanded significantly.
And the family gets involved immediately. Her parents, Dolly and Thomas, they fly in. Her siblings come from Florida and Massachusetts. They're on the ground, not waiting around.
They mobilized.
They printed over 2,000 missing person flyers.
And the search tactics were comprehensive. They used local volunteers on horseback and ATVs to scour the rougher terrain that police vehicles couldn't reach. The family even hired a helicopter for aerial searches.
They were looking everywhere. The reports say they even searched abandoned coal mines in the area. That's a terrifying thought. Searching dark, unstable mines for your daughter. Imagine the desperation you'd have to feel.
And yet, despite all of those efforts, the horses, the ATVs, the helicopter,
Nothing.
no trace of her was found. Not a piece of clothing, not a shoe. Nothing beyond those initial tracks that ended in the dark.
This lack of physical evidence, it just led to a lot of theories. The police had to work with what they had.
Which wasn't much.
Basically a car and a missing driver.
There were 3 primary theories at this early stage. The first was flight via hitchhiking. Highway 200 has truck traffic. It's plausible she made it back to the road further down and was picked up.
Then there was the stowaway theory.
Correct. There was a hay truck parked about a half-mile from the crash site. Police speculated she might have climbed into the hay to hide or to sleep and was then unknowingly transported away when the truck left in the morning.
But there was no evidence for that.
None. No sightings, nothing to support it. And then there was theory 3.
Amnesia.
This is the one that really took hold given her behavior at the crash site.
And it makes sense medically, right?
It's medically plausible, yes. We know she was in a significant collision. Head trauma is a common result. If she suffered a concussion or a more severe brain injury combined with her pre-existing stress, it could trigger a state where she lost access to her autobiographical memory. She might not have known who she was.
There was one piece of evidence found in the car that really stuck with the family. It wasn't a note or a map. It was a camera.
The family developed a roll of film that was found among her belongings.
And most of the photos were just, standard pictures. But there was one that stood out.
A self-portrait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A self-portrait taken in a mirror. She's looking right at herself. And in the context of her disappearance, her depression, that spectator behavior, that photo became this very haunting artifact of the case.
It speaks to a search for identity that may have been happening even before the crash.
With the physical trail cold, the investigation shifted to a much wider net. And this is where the numbers just become overwhelming.
Sightings.
Over 5,000 of them.
An astronomical number.
It feels impossible.
Yeah.
How do you even begin to sift through that?
It is extremely difficult. When a case receives this much media attention, false positives increase exponentially.
Right.
But the geographic distribution was vast. Sightings were reported in just about every state, even Alaska and Hawaii.
So let's focus on the ones the police actually took seriously. The ones that happened in the immediate aftermath, in those first few weeks. Because some of these are incredibly detailed.
Let's look at the timeline of sightings beginning in May of 1989. This is roughly 2 weeks after the crash.
May 4th, 1989, Luverne, Minnesota.
A police officer in Luverne reported a sighting. This carries more weight than a typical civilian report because of the officer's training and observation.
The officer saw a woman who looked a lot like Patricia Meehan at a Hardee's restaurant. Now, listen to the behavior. She wasn't eating, she wasn't with anyone.
She sat alone in a booth.
And she sat there for 5 hours.
5 hours.
Just drinking water until the restaurant closed.
From a behavioral standpoint, this is significant. This kind of catatonic behavior, sitting motionless for hours, is consistent with severe psychological distress. It suggests she had nowhere to go and no drive to do anything but exist in that space.
And when they closed, she just got up and walked to a nearby 24-hour diner.
She was questioned by the officer. Her responses were evasive, inconsistent.
She refused to give her name.
Correct. First, she claimed to be from Colorado. Then she shifted her story and claimed to be from Israel.
Colorado. Then Israel. That's a huge jump. It suggests deep confusion or a deliberate attempt to hide who she is.
Or it suggests confabulation, which is often associated with amnesia. If she didn't know who she was, her brain might have been creating false memories to fill in the gaps. She wouldn't be lying, necessarily. She might genuinely believe the new story in that moment.
That was May 4th. The very next day, May 5th, the sightings move. South Dakota.
Sioux Falls, South Dakota. A waitress at a truck stop diner reported a woman resembling Meehan. Again, the duration of the stay is the anomaly.
How long?
The woman sat there from 12 a.m. midnight until 11:30 a.m. the next morning.
11.5 hours.
Yeah.
Just drinking coffee.
Yes.
It's like she was afraid to go outside.
Yeah.
Or just didn't know what else to do.
And that same day in Murdo, South Dakota, there was another sighting between 10 p.m. and 11 p.m. But this one is different.
How so?
She wasn't alone. She was seen in the company of a man described as being in his 30s.
So, is she traveling with someone now? Or are these just different women who look like her?
It's difficult to confirm. However, shortly after this, the sightings seem to loop back toward Montana.
May 11th. A truck driver sees a woman walking on a frontage road in Billings, Montana. Billings is, what, about 200 miles from the crash site?
Roughly, yes. And then, on May 19th, a sighting near her home in Bozeman. This one is particularly distressing for the investigation because it places her back in her own environment.
2 waitresses saw her at a restaurant near where she used to live,
Hmm.
and they gave conflicting accounts. One waitress said she ate breakfast in a huge hurry and mentioned she had to go shopping at 9 a.m.
The other waitress described her as disoriented and talking to herself.
If that was her, she was right there, back in Bozeman. But she didn't go to her house. She didn't contact her landlord. She just went to a diner, talked to herself, and then left.
It's like a ghost haunting her own life, being that close to home but not being able to actually go there.
And the same week, she was supposedly sighted at a horse auction in Billings.
Which aligns with her background as a ranch hand and her stated love of animals. It's a location she would logically be drawn to, even if her memory was fragmented.
Then the trail moves again, west. Late May and into June, the sightings shift to the Pacific Northwest, Washington State.
On May 30th, on Interstate 90 in rural Washington, a truck driver saw a woman resembling Meehan. He offered her a ride. She declined.
She told another motorist that her car had broken down and she was going to find a phone. But her car was wrecked back in Circle, Montana, weeks ago.
If this was Meehan, she may have been repeating a narrative loop, stuck in the memory of the crash, replaying the last coherent moment she had before the dissociation took hold.
Then the sightings are in Tacoma, then Seattle. A Port of Tacoma employee saw her asking for directions to Aberdeen.
Law enforcement took the Washington State sightings very seriously. There was a logical connection there.
Her sister.
Her sister lived in Seattle, and her ex-boyfriend, a man named Kurt Fletcher, he lived in Spokane.
So it seemed like she was drifting toward people she knew. Drifting west, Maybe on some subconscious level she knew she had people there, even if she couldn't remember who they were.
A subconscious homing instinct, perhaps. By June of 1989, there were over 25 sightings reported, and police had confirmed 3 of them as likely.
But they just couldn't catch up to her.
She was always gone by the time authorities arrived. She was moving constantly.
The media coverage was intense at this point. The family was desperate. And then, over a year later, in 1990, came the moment everyone thought was the breakthrough.
The arrest, August 30th, 1990, in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho.
A transient woman is arrested, and the charge is minor. It's just littering. But the arresting officer looks at her and thinks, wait a minute.
The resemblance was striking. The officer was convinced this was Patricia Meehan.
And everything fit. The timeline, the location Idaho, is right next to Washington and Montana. The transient lifestyle fit the profile of someone wandering with amnesia.
On September 1st, 1990, she appeared in Kootenai County Court.
You can imagine the tension. The family's waiting for news. The press is there.
The woman told the judge she was a missionary, traveling between Montana and Washington.
And Kurt Fletcher, the ex-boyfriend, he spoke to the media. He said there was a strong resemblance. He even said her voice sounded like Patricia's.
It really seemed like this was the resolution. However, in these investigations, visual identification, even by those who know the subject, is notoriously unreliable. Science had to provide the final answer.
They took her fingerprints.
And the analysis was conclusive. The woman in the Coeur d'Alene courtroom was not Patricia Meehan.
A false lead. A doppelganger. After more than a year of searching, of hope, it all just came crashing down with a fingerprint card.
It's devastating to consider the emotional roller coaster the family must have gone through in that 48-hour period.
But the media impact, that continued. The case was featured on Unsolved Mysteries.
Season 2, Episode 6.
It aired on November 1st, 1989, and that date is significant.
It would have been Patricia Meehan's 38th birthday.
The show broadcast her face to millions of households. It generated a massive wave of new tips, but none of them led to her.
That is the nature of these broadcast appeals. You get a huge volume of information, but not necessarily accuracy. The noise-to-signal ratio becomes very difficult for investigators to manage.
So, where does that leave us today?
Patricia Meehan remains missing. It has now been over 36 years. The investigation is still technically active, but it's cold.
Let's just go over what we actually know for certain. We know she was under stress. We know she crashed her car on a dark highway in Montana. We know she climbed a fence and watched the aftermath in silence. And we know she walked into the dark.
The confirmed physical evidence is limited. It's the vehicle, the crash site debris, the shoe prints that ended at 3 a.m., and that roll of film. Everything else, the thousands of sightings, the stories from the diners, it all remains unverified. Highly suggestive, but unverified.
And the leading theories, they haven't really changed much in all this time, have they?
No. Amnesia and depression remain the primary explanations for her behavior. The head trauma from the crash could have erased her identity, while the underlying depression fueled her initial flight.
Which explains why she never contacted her family, despite all the publicity.
Exactly. If she didn't know she was Patricia Meehan, the flyers and the TV shows would have meant nothing to her. She would have been looking at a stranger's face.
It's that image of the spectator that just sticks with you. That final, verified moment. A woman standing on the wrong side of a fence, watching the wreckage of the life she was about to leave behind.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't scream, she didn't cry, she just watched. And then she turned around and kept walking.
It is a case that truly highlights the fragility of identity. One moment, you are a ranch hand with a family and a history, and with one impact, one moment of trauma, you can become a ghost while you are still alive.
We may never know what happened after she walked into that field. But the tracks were there. She walked somewhere. Thanks for listening.